The Women's Fund for Scotland is Scotland's only dedicated fund for women and girls. I'm Susan Morrison, and this is our podcast where we talk to inspiring women improving the lives of those women and girls today. Today we're speaking to Danielle from Broke Not Broken, and if there's one thing this girl knows, it's that cake is important. Danielle, you're joining us from, let me get this right, because I've managed to get it wrong twice today, Broke Not Broken.
Yes.
Ah, brilliant name. What does it mean?
I guess you interpret it however you want to interpret it. My interpretation of it is that no matter how hard things get, there'll always be somebody there to lift you up and hold you up. So even when you're skint and life is hard and everything else is falling apart, doesn't mean you necessarily need to completely fall apart. There'll be people there for you to hold on to and to get you through.
Ah, that is a brilliant definition. I was wondering. I love this image that you just put in my head about someone being broke, as in, some trauma is happening, but then there's all these people that come together to hold them together.
Well, we try, yeah.
So they're never actually broken. Who do you work with?
So we work with people from all over Kinross-shire. We have 14 different projects. So that means that we meet varying people. Predominantly, we are an anti-poverty charity. So usually people who are struggling financially are on a low income or find themselves in a time of crisis. But we also, through other projects we run Tuesday trip away days in the holidays. So we just families who are vulnerable and isolated. Same with our parent and toddler group. That tends to be people who are isolated. They're maybe not living in poverty, but they're struggling in other ways. And obviously what we're going to talk about today is we have our For Women Who women's group. And that is just for any woman that lives in Kinross-shire that just wants to come along for whatever reason, meet new friends and be supported. So yeah, it's quite varying.
Well, yes, if just bring you back to, sorry, what did you say that group was called? For Women?
For Women Who.
For Women Who?
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
So we have, like last night, we had For Women Who like to write, because we've been doing a creative writing course. We've had For Women Who like to meditate. Like it varies, whatever the theme of the week is.
Oh, that's lovely. So that means that the women themselves can kind of like fill in the end of the question or fill in the end of the sentence for women who like water skiing. I don't know why I said water skiing. That's completely irrelevant.
Well, you never know.
Have you ever tried water skiing?
Well, not yet, but let's put it in the diary for the summer.
No, you're on your own there, hen. I tried it. I tried it once, and to make matters worse, you have to get into a wetsuit.
Oh.
So I'm not a good idea. And so I basically just look like a black pudding. But if we just go back to women who are actually working with you and with your groups, did the Women's Fund for Scotland help you with that? Is that how did that all come about?
Yes, starting the group up, like it's quite well established now, but going like it's funny because coming onto this podcast, I had to really like, right, okay, how did this start? And it was in the local town hall. We held events where we invited people along and what mattered to them, because we didn't really know what the group was going to look like. We were coming out of the COVID pandemic, and we see on so many occasions that we were supporting single women or women in relationships, but that they were really isolated. They didn't have any outlet for themselves. So we were like, what is this going to look like? Is it going to be about fighting and campaigning for what matters to us in the community? Is it going to be just a social thing? Like, how is it going to evolve? So we were doing some tasting sessions, things like that. And then we started to decide as a group how the group was looking. And then we were able to get the Women's Fund for Scotland funding. And that was amazing because it empowered the women in the group to be able to decide what they wanted to do, what they could afford to do. As simple as what snacks they wanted at the group. In our sort of code of conduct, it states that we must have cake at every session. So these were things as small as that, but also as big as actually they wanted to try some mindfulness. So we were able to bring people in to do that. They wanted to go and see a human rights show. So we went to see that. We've done lots of things over the years, and having the fund for that was amazing because it gave people the confidence to be like, well, this is our money and we, this isn't just a class we go to. This is something we're establishing in ourselves and we can push it the way we want to go. And the beautiful thing about For Women Who is the variation in the women who attend is so great. So we've got people in their 20s and people in their 80s that come along.
Mm-hmm.
But actually having this control over what was happening in the pot of money meant that they could all be equal and all decide together what they wanted to do, and it's allowed them to try new things. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
You will find that women in their 20s, women in their 80s, cake will always bring them together.
Yes.
I think that's very much a unifying factor in women's lives, is the importance of cake. And can I just say that any code of conduct that says you have to have cake, I am so behind that. Totally, completely. Fabulous. Do you find that women join the group for a while and then move on, or have you got people they just stay within them?
On the whole, people stay with us. We do have people who dip in and out, which actually is great because I think it means there's no pressure. There's no pressure on anybody to make sure that they attend every week or they're chucked out or, because as women, we've all got things going on in our lives. And sometimes it's just all too much, or sometimes you can't get childcare, or sometimes you can't find the strength to get out. But what has inspired me most about this group is the fact that most of the women, they do show up if we meet once a fortnight, and they do show up every fortnight, and they do it for themselves to get themselves out the house. And you often hear, especially in the winter, because we meet on a Wednesday evening and it's like, I just didn't think I could be bothered tonight. Like I just wanted to stay warm, get my jammies on and just settle. But I pushed myself to come and I'm so glad I did because I feel so much better for coming. And that's amazing. And I always think that's great that people really push themselves to come, but also that it allows, they don't just turn up for themselves, they're turning up for everybody else in the group and they're shouldering everybody else. So it's that create that trust and that, unity that's been formed. And I always think that's really special that they're showing up for each other, not just themselves.
Oh, I think that's so crucial. Once again, you're going back to that image of people coming together to help somebody who might be broke but not broken.
Yeah.
And just join with each other. I mean, that must be what success looks like to you for your group.
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. Some weeks we can have 20 women show up, some weeks we have 6. But usually it's sort of around the 10 to 15 people mark. But I think the success is the trust. We've been doing creative writing sessions the last 2 weeks. And the first session ended up really emotional. People quite kind of bared their souls and nobody was really expecting to do that. It was in one way quite hard, but in the other side of the coin was that people felt comfortable enough to be able to share what, things that were just bubbling under the surface. And then on the flip side of that, our other session last night couldn't have been more lighthearted and silly and fun. So I think it's really testament to the women in the group that they've built this trust circle and they can, there's no cliqueiness. We make sure everybody's welcome and that they do trust each other. And I think that, to me, is success.
You just touched on something there, no cliqueiness, everyone's welcome. How do women find out about the group? Is it word of mouth or do you actually put stuff out there?
Yeah, so it's word of mouth. We promote it on Facebook, and as a charity, we work with different agencies. So through the council, social prescribing, the Health and Care Social Partnership, we've actually got a counselling service within the charity. So people will refer women into that. We have a WhatsApp group, and so before people even come along, they can join the WhatsApp group, get to know people's names and just build up a bit of rapport with people so that they're not walking into a room full of strangers, basically. And we found that generally works really well. And I think we're very lucky that we've got a really good bunch of women who just want company, compassion, and a right good laugh. I think we try to keep things lighthearted when we can. So yeah, we love a quiz, we love a games night, very competitive.
So on the one hand, it's all about compassion. On the other hand, if it's a quiz, it's like handbags outside.
Yeah.
I also liked your kind of like, what's the word we'll look here for? Your strategy there of preparing women before they come to the group. like, so there's a WhatsApp group, they know what they're coming into. They're just not walking into a room and all these faces turn to look at them, which I
Yeah,
think would be really off-putting. So that's a really great little idea, isn't it, to
yeah.
get people up to speed on it.
I think it's like you ever go to like a small town or something for a weekend and you walk into the local pub and it's that, who are they and why are they coming here? Like, it's a horrible feeling. You're like, oh, get me out of here. But it's the same. We find that with our parent and toddler group, we have the same strategy because it is intimidating when there's people you don't know, or in a small community, it can be even worse when it's people you do know.
Mm,
Um, so it's good that, everybody's on an equal pegging and it's not like we're the forefathers of the group and you're a newbie. It's very much like, come along, see if you like it. You're not going to like everything we do every week.
mhm.
But, we'll give it a bash and we do all sorts of random stuff. We go to see pantomimes, but we have like a planetarium coming in. We have beekeepers coming in to do talks. We do sound bathing, but it's all very much led from what the women in the group want. And it can be quite magical. And it's hard because let's not beat around the bush. Women are not always the nicest species. They're not. And as a female myself, I can say that. We all can get a wee bit ahead of ourselves and a bit opinionated and a bit judgmental of each other.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a really, I hope, I don't want to be naive, but I hope it is a really safe space for people. And I think the beauty is that we only meet up once a fortnight. So it's not over familiar either. But it's not, that kind of helps mitigate the cliquiness as well. But it's amazing because real true friendships have been formed through the group and you see people's confidence growing and then they've come from not really wanting to even come through the door to actually leading sessions as well, which is amazing. I think like the fact we've had the fund to be able to facilitate that through Women's Fund for Scotland is just incredible. But the real credit goes to the women who come along and lift each other up.
It is to their credit that they're doing it. I also like the fact that you say it's once every fortnight, so it's not like once a week, because that becomes sort of like, oh, I need to go, and you feel bad for not going one week and then you don't go the next week, and then the next thing you know, you've fallen out of the routine altogether. But a fortnightly thing is nice. But see, with the Women's Fund for Scotland, though, it's not just funding and stuff, it's also sort of networking opportunities and things. Did you find that helpful as well?
I think as an organisation we did. So our chairperson, I think, had done a lot of networking and she was getting inspiration from other groups and what they were doing. And it was just really good. Like, I think the information we had was all about empowering the women and that drove us forward. That was incredibly useful.
What's the sort of challenges you've got coming up, apart from keeping everybody supplied with cake?
I think the challenges are we've got quite a number of people now, so it's great we only meet up once a fortnight, but there's so many ideas about what everybody wants to do. We can't fit it in. So that's a challenge in itself. We have quite a few disabled attendees, or people with mobility issues. We are very fortunate that we have a really accessible space, but when we go out and about, that isn't always the case. It's not always easy, but we just try and make everything we do as accessible for everybody as possible.
I don't think the world is in a really tough place right now. And I think especially for women, sort of trapped between being carers of children and parents and jobs and things. I mean, do you find that you think your services will be more in demand in future?
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing already, I mean, just since I came on board with the charity in 2021, overall of all our services, we're definitely on a positive incline. It's hard going because ultimately you want the group to be well used and you want it to be people to come together. But for every new person that comes along, it's not just a number. You've got to help them with their confidence. You've got to allow them to be individual and make their own groups. And you are carrying the weight of another person a little bit. And it's not always heavy, but it's another person to be responsible for and make sure that they're happy and they're settled. Obviously, we're all grown-ups, we're all responsible for ourselves, but you want to make sure that people feel comfortable within the group. So that is challenging. And obviously with any third sector organisation, we're always looking for money in the pot to keep going. The one thing about our service is it's not a group that you come for a wee while and you move on, and it's a continuous group. But we're seeing more and more that the women are able to take ownership of the group, and we still come along because we enjoy coming along. And we enjoy the cake and the banter, but it's good. There's more opportunity, I think, for the women to be taking a lead with it. So it does present challenges. Sometimes people just want to get away from their husband, but a lot of the time there's many layers, and as you get to know the people who come to the group, you start to realise that they could benefit from other services and other advice, and that then creates more pressure on us as an organisation. But we want to be helping people as much as we can, so it's a great way to be able to do that. The other thing I've not mentioned about the group is that we often have agencies coming in, so like Welfare Rights or Citizens Advice, to offer advice to women if they want to take it up. And if we're doing some crafty stuff, they'll do some crafty stuff with us, and then they can have a chat with people individually. And that just allows the women of the group to access services that they might not be able to access otherwise, especially as we are in a rural location.
Yeah, that is absolutely fascinating, because you're right. Rural poverty is something that's frequently overlooked.
Yes.
Because people just assume it's an inner city problem, but you've got and loneliness as a result of that, and you're challenging this face on, which is absolutely fantastic, with the aid of cake, of course.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, we cannot overestimate the importance of good cake in this equation. But bringing in welfare services, because even just getting to them can be an issue if you're in the rural area, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes people are not tech savvy, have access to the right devices. So by actually having the agencies in the room and keeping it informal, we tend to try and have that women come along from the agencies.
Yeah.
As a women's group after all. So by having those people come along and be part of the group, it's amazing how many people can be helped there and then through crisis grant support or benefit take up. We find we do this with all our projects. We always have like welfare rights and things coming in. But I actually think the women's group is one of the projects where that there's been most people that have been entitled to benefits that have not been claiming them. So it's been really interesting to see. And because everybody takes a wee 10 minutes, there's no shame. There's no shame. It's not like walking into a council office. It's everybody's just having a chat with this person. For our group, it's worked fantastically. So we try and do that. We don't want it to be agency heavy.
No.
But we try and do that once or twice a year just because it's incredibly useful.
But that's absolutely fantastic, Danielle. And you're smashing down poverty, isolation, loneliness, all with the aid, again, as we've mentioned, of cake. I think broke, not broken, is I didn't understand the name properly at the beginning, but now I think it's just absolutely fantastic.
That's great, Susan. Thank you so much for today. I've really enjoyed it.
No, thank you, Danielle. It's brilliant. Thank you for joining us and listening to this story. I hope you've been inspired. And if you would like to support the Women's Fund for Scotland, search for us online and listen out for our other podcast episodes.